Hey everybody, this is a quick tutorial about using the digital audio workstation LMMS 1.1.3 to create sounds that you can use in animation, little loops, songs, and things like that. LMMS is a free program and it's really nice, easy to use, and so this is just a quick introduction to using that. So you've just listened to the kind of loop that we're going to walk through here. Here's what it looks like in the piano roll. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a new project. And I'm not going to save this one, it's already been saved. And your program will look something like this when it first comes up. And there's several pieces to it. There's a song editor, a beatline, bassline editor, a mixer, a controller. You may also have an automation track depending upon how things are set up, but it'll look something like this. Now for just making cool types of loops, you can deal with the beat bassline editor, and in there you're going to kind of have just a rhythm track that kind of repeats over and over again. But if you're going to do a melody of any kind, then you want to use the song editor. Now here I'm not going to go into the theory of music or anything else like that. If you just want to play around, just start clicking on things and play around with it. It's fun. But if you understand about music, that's where I'm going to kind of assume that you understand about time signatures and tempo and things like that. So the first thing that as you think about the track that you want to underlay your animation, you want to get the tempo right. Now, of course, if you're an expert in writing music, you can go straight into the song editor. But to get it right, according to, if I have it in my ear, I'm kind of playing by ear, and I think about this track that I want, I'm just going to go down into the beat bassline editor, and I'm going to click the first beat of each measure. So, we've got 4 measures here. And right now as I'm recording, I've got both the voice and the system sounds recording, so I'm not sure that the system sounds are going to come across as nicely as I can actually hear them. So I'm not going to go through the whole process of post mixing and things like that, but hopefully you can get the idea. So I've put in these markers for the first beat of each measure, and I play that. And by default, the tempo is 140 beats per minute, and that's way faster than I'm wanting to do. So I've stopped that, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the tempo down. Let's move it down. You can actually move it down while it's running, so I'll show you that. So I'm just using the middle mouse wheel to scroll down. And let's just say I wanted it 90 beats per minute, and that's kind of, as I think about laying down the track, how I think about eighth notes and quarter notes and 16th notes and things like that. So in my head I can think about the timing pretty well. So now in the song editor here, if I actually want this bass line to show up in the song, then I need to click on the equivalent beat bassline bar here in the song editor. If I click on song editor right now, you hear I don't hear anything. So if I want this beat line to be there, then I can click for however many measures that I want this beat to repeat. So if I put it in one measure, we can hear. I'm sorry, that's 4 measures, 1 bar. If I have 2 bars in there. Okay, so, but in this case, I'm not really interested in that backbeat, and so I can just right-click and say delete to get rid of that. So in this particular case, I just use this to set my tempo. Now, the next thing is, if you look in the song editor, you've got a number of different things, and we're not going to cover all of them. Specifically, as we look at the triple oscillator, that's normally where you start out in putting down your song. So to open that up, I can either double-click on this bar, or I can click right-click and open in piano roll. And you'll see I've got a piano roll associated with that. I can move that window wherever I want. And if I use my middle mouse wheel to scroll, I can find the location there where I want to put the notes, C3, 2, or 1. Now I'm going to close down this piano roll here, and to show that I can do the same thing in the beat baseline editor just by right-clicking and saying Open in Piano Roll. And so there you can see, here you've got those beats right there. And this is the same piano roll, but the point is that the beat baseline editor is really about repeating tracks. So you can put things down in here just like regular notes. And if you play them, and so they'll be there, but it will repeat whenever you get to the end of the bar that has the last note in it. So you can use that piano editor to create any kind of beat line that you want, but this is really not intended for the song itself. So I just wanted to show it's the exact same editor, but you really want to be doing it within the song editor. So let me bring up the piano roll here. So as I'm looking at this triple oscillator, it's actually very cool, but as it starts up, listen to the sound. So it's kind of a strange electronic piano sound, and this, this may not be what you're wanting to use. So let me close that down. And the first thing that you can do is I can click on triple oscillator. And I can go in here, and at the bottom it's got a piano kind of keys. And you can hear that sound. And I can actually change these, all these knobs. I can play with them and come up with different sounds. Now the first thing that you can look at is, if you don't know anything about the shape of the wave, you can look that up. This is a sine wave, but you can change the shape of the wave by clicking. And you can see you can get very different sounds. So you can change all of these knobs and have different sounds and things, and then you can go ahead and you can save that sound. So you can create any kind of special synthesized sound that you want to create in there. But the problem is you're probably going, oh man, I don't want to spend all the time just trying to find a good sound and spend all my time doing that. So really I'm going to close this down, and I'm not going to do that. Even though the triple oscillator is there, I'm not going to use that in this case. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to look at my presets. And underneath triple oscillator they already have a bunch of sounds. So you can see there's all different kinds of sounds there. But there's another place you can look as well. See this thing that looks like a note? It says My Samples, and you can go in there and you can look at different things underneath there. So for example, in Instruments, so you've got some instruments in there. But in this case, the one, I've already looked at them, so you can spend a lot of time just playing around and look at these different sounds. And I'm going to choose one that I wanted to use that has a bass sound to it. And I'm going to choose this Bass Hard 01. So that's the kind of sound that I want. And all I'm going to do is take that and drag it into the song editor. So as I do that, notice that I've got the bass sound there. So I can close the samples. Now I'm not even going to use any of these others for right now. You can leave them in there, or if I click on this little gear thing, I can remove the track. And so I can remove all these other tracks if I want to. I can leave the bass line in there for now, and I'm not going to use automation right now. But we've just got the bass sound, and I'm going to again double click in here, and that brings up the piano roll. And now, so it's a piano with a different sound to it. So that's how you can start off with your song editor, having whatever sound, one of these pre-made sounds. So I jumped ahead a little bit and have already put in the music here. We'll talk about that in just a second, because the point is not to show you this particular song, but just how to use this. And the first thing that I want to show you, though, is this little triangle here. That's where you start playing your music. And so I'm going to move it all the way to the beginning. And notice as that I move it around, this is telling us where that playhead is. So I'm going to move it around, move it to the beginning. And want you to notice something. Okay, you're going to hear the sound. I hope it comes through well on this. But watch that it doesn't repeat, doesn't come back. So it's playing the music. This is the first bar, second bar. Okay, now that one's repeating here. Now I'm playing it again. And notice this time it didn't repeat and the playhead keeps moving. So what's going on? Well, look at this little marker here. When it's off, then it will repeat whenever it runs into a bar that doesn't, at the last bar that has a note. After it found the last note, it will go back to the beginning. If this is on, notice it says enable, disable loop points. So if this is on, it will keep playing from this little green marker until it hits the other green marker. So if I have a song that I don't want to loop, I just have it go to the end. So I just wanted you to understand that. And to move this little marker, I can right click on it and it will move that marker wherever I want it to move. And then of course left click over here. Sorry, I'm not sure that's quite right. So for the time being, I'm just going to leave that beginning loop marker there. But at the end, I just I use my right mouse and move it where I want it to stop. And again, if I just want it to go through the existing notes, I turn this on and off. Now, notice that the same kind of markers are in the main song editor. That way you can have one track loop more frequently than the song overall or other tracks. Okay, so now to the basics of putting your notes in here. There's lots of other things that we can talk about how to do this, but I'm just going to try to give you the basics. The first thing, quantization. That's not quite so important here because we're not actually inputting from a MIDI keyboard. That's where that's most important, but we're going to leave it at 1/16. Notice thing that we have here is the last note. I'm going to change this to 16th note. And so now wherever I click, it's just going to add notes here at a 16th note. Now if I have a set of notes that I've put in here and I want to get rid of them, first what I want to do is select them. And I can do Control and then I drag around the area and that selected all those notes. And then I can go here and right click to delete an individual one, or I can just press delete and it will delete all the selected notes. Now if you look up here on the toolbar, you'll see that you can do these in a number of different ways. So here I've got the pencil selected, the draw mode. There's an erase mode, select mode, some detune, we're not going to get into that. But then the typical cut, copy, and paste. So again, I'm just going to click on notes here, and we can select them just by clicking on the select, and I can drag select, or of course if I drag outside and it deselects these other notes. But again, like I said, if I have the pencil, there's a shortcut by pressing Control and selecting. So that's another way I can do things. And of course, if I click on the eraser, now I can click on the note and it'll erase. But if I have the pencil, my shortcut is to right click on the note to erase it. So I can erase individual notes that way. So if I have different notes put in here, again I'm going to select them all. If I want to move them all, the easiest thing is just to drag it and move them around at once. Now let me do something here. Specifically what I want to do is I'm going to deselect these and I'm going to take this last note and I'm going to drag it out and let's move it a little bit. Now notice as it's larger, it's easier to see that if the cursor looks like a plus with arrows on it, then I can move this up or down or left and right. And then if I go to the end, notice it becomes a double arrow so that I can make the note longer or shorter, depending upon how much I want. So now I'm going to notice here for each bar, it's divided into grids. So you've got quarter notes here. This is 4/4 time, the time signature. And so 30-second notes, quarter notes, So 8th, 16th notes. So you can divide these things up so that we've got a 16th note division here. Now, if I change this to last note, then now as I enter a note, it's the same size as what I last entered. So here, this one's a quarter note. Now if I want to make it an 8th note here, the next note I put in will be an 8th note. Now if I draw it down to a 16th, now each note that I put is a 16th. If I can draw it out, and now the next note. So that's what this last note is. But of course I can set whatever time that I want, whole notes, half notes, whatever I want. So I'm going to set this to a 16th note. That's what I am using right here. I'm going to go and delete all of these here. Actually, let me change this to an 8th note, and I'll show you. So in bar 4, I'm just going to put a note here at the beginning of the first beat, the second, and the third. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to control and select all of those, and if I go into the last note and drag it, notice that all of the notes are extended the same amount, but the position of each note doesn't change. However, if I let go, I'm going to press Shift now and drag the notes, and notice now they do get larger, but the time between the end of the note and the beginning of the next note remains constant. So let me go here and show that again. Sorry about that. Press Shift, and I'm going to drag, and notice that they started off 1/8 note apart, and they continue to be an 1/8 note apart no matter how long I make the note. So that's just two ways that you can quickly adjust your notes. Okay, so that's the basics of how you enter in your note information in here. Again, I'm going to go here to make the loop so that it loops when I want it to, and then I can just close my editor there, and we can play it in the normal song editor. And again, I want to turn this on and make sure that it loops at the end of this bar, so it only goes 2 bars, and we can hear it. Okay, and the only other thing to show you here is, again, there's a master sound here, so that will control the volume of all tracks at once. And of course, we've got a volume and panning, so you've got a stereo sound. So if I grab that little knob and go up, it increases the volume. If I pull my mouse down, it decreases the volume. So that way, if I had 2 different sounds, so for example, this beat line here, if I wanted to change the volume of that, I can go up or down there. So that's how I can change the volume of the individual tracks. So that's a way that you can use LMMS to create your song. Now, the only thing that you want to do now, as I go into the project, you want to make sure you save it. And the very nice thing about LMMS, you can actually save as new version. Of course, if you've worked with any digital stuff at all, you want to save as frequently as possible. You can save it to save it as a new thing, but saving it as a new version is really good if you've got something that, oh, this version sounds good, but you might want to continue to tweak it. You might want to save as individual versions so that you can go back to it. So once you have done your tweaking, you can go in, you can export. I'm not going to save here because I've already saved it as I like it. So we're going to export. And of course, you find the location where you want to export your music to. I'm going to export it to this music folder. And now, dramatic wave, that's what I'm going to call it. You can save it as compressed OGG file or a WAV file, whichever one you like. So I'm going to save that. And you can set the settings as you want. But what I suggest here, if like I want it in MP3, so to do that, I actually may then convert it in Audacity. So let's go ahead and start, and it saved it out. So the thing, as we think about exporting, the looping part is not going to be exported, so you want to make sure you just repeat the track. So the way that you can do that is to copy and paste this multiple times. So instead of looping here, if I want to export multiple, I would do copy, right-click, copy, and then right click on here and paste. And so now I've got two of them when I export, meaning that the song will be twice as long when I export. So I can export this to MP3 and just save it. And of course set all the settings however they should be set. So that's the basics of using LMMS to create background music or loops or anything that you might want to use in animations or just creating fun music. Hope that's helpful.